Dear students, colleagues and guests, it is with great pleasure and deep gratitude that we welcome today one of the most influential and significant contemporary artists in the world, Ai Weiwei. Let me thank the Carisbo Foundation, and in particular its president, Patrizia Pasini, for providing us with this wonderful opportunity on the occasion of the exhibition promoted by the Foundation, which will be opening later this afternoon. The presence of Ai Weiwei here at the University of Bologna represents not only an extraordinary opportunity to engage with his art, but also with his activism, which has inspired and continues to inspire millions of people worldwide. His work, always provocative and engaged, invites us to reflect not only on what is happening in the world, but also on ourselves, on our responsibilities as citizens and as human beings. It is no coincidence that here, in a city with a long tradition fighting for civil rights and freedom, Ai Weiwei shares his vision with us today. The University of Bologna itself has a strong tradition of promoting human rights through academic programs, research initiatives, collaborations with human rights organizations, participation in European solidarity programs, and the organization of public events, where to discuss contemporary human rights challenges. The alma mater has indeed always demonstrated a deep and direct engagement in human rights defense. And Ai Weiwei's visit perfectly aligns with this ongoing commitment to fostering dialogue on these critical global issues. Dear students, today's conversation is a great opportunity to understand how art can be a form of resistance and a powerful tool for change. It is a chance to better grasp the role of that each of us can play in society, and to be inspired to continue fighting for the values we believe in. In conclusion, I would like to thank Ai Weiwei for being here today and for his extraordinary contribution to the world of art and social justice. We are honored to be able to hear his voice and learn from his experience. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's so nice to see such a large audience and so many students. And as a director of the Department of the Arts of this university, I just want to express my gratitude to the Fondazione Carisbo, which made this event possible. And I especially thank our amazing guest tonight, award-famous artists whose works cross boundaries, traditional boundaries, and challenge our perceptions of art, of politics, of society, and of technology. So please join me extending a warm welcome to Mr. Ai Weiwei. And tonight we'll have the rare opportunity to listen to him in a conversation with Arturo Galansino, art historian and director of the Fondazione di Palazzo Strozzi. But before this, I give the floor to Francesco Spampinato, professor of history of contemporary art at this university in the Department of the Arts, and I give the floor to him.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today I have the pleasant task of introducing you to the work of Ai Weiwei, a Chinese artist, activist, and architect whose work is moved by deep social and political commitment. Among the world's best-known artists working today, Ai proves that art can trigger forms of social transformation But it's not just that. One of Ai's many talents is, in fact, his peculiar way of captivating global media attention, using his own public persona as an artistic medium. Let's focus on his proper artworks first. Those you can see in museums and exhibition venues worldwide, and now in our city of Bologna. Most of them are installations based on a clash between the Western paradigms of avant-garde art and, on the other side, the traditional forms of Chinese art making, rooted in the craftsmanship of either functional or decorative objects, as well as in the logistics of industrial production that has transformed China in one of the world's leading economic powers. Ai's works emphasize the scale, the copy, and the priority of quantity over quality that characterizes Chinese production. He started working as an artist while living in New York in the 1980s. Back then, he made paintings of the Mona Lisa, Mao Zedong, the Statue of Liberty, highly recognizable icons whose symbolic value was diluted in a sea of media reproductions and gadgetry. He also started making sculptures employing everyday objects, such as hangers, men's shoes, raincoats, artificial fur. While in New York, he discovered from Marcel Duchamp the power of using everyday objects, and from Andy Warhol, that of seriality, to tackle issues of uniformity and the depersonalization. He was clearly fascinated by the way American artists of his generation, from Jeff Koons to Barbara Kruger, were bringing that legacy in new directions, addressing consumerism and the schizophrenic vibe of the postmodern condition. However, for Ai, it was different. Modernism and postmodernism are Western inventions. Ai instead integrated that language with an Asian perspective, with a Chinese way of seeing. After all, he came from a society where everything and everyone was meant to look the same to facilitate state control. That's why he employed seriality and the scale of seriality as an allegory of the human condition. Several of his works are indeed based on the repetition of the same unit, whether it's an object or human beings. For the international exhibition Documenta, the 12th edition of 2007, he brought in the German city of Kassel 1,001 Chinese citizens who had never traveled abroad before. The work, titled Fairy Tale, was intended as a social sculpture in which these people played the role of migrant workers, the way German artist Joseph Beuys had intended social sculpture back in the 1970s as situations in which art triggers forms of social awareness. Is there still something that makes us unique? Ai seems to answer this question through installations based on seriality. One of the most popular is definitely Sunflower Seeds from 2010. Millions of life-sized sunflower seeds, handcrafted in porcelain by specialist Chinese craftsmen, displayed on the floor of Tate Modern in London. Each of them is unique, but they all look the same. Another recurrent material in his production is ancient Chinese pottery from various eras and dynasties, mostly vases, placed in sequences and grids, sometimes left intact, other times painted over in various colors or with a red Coca-Cola logo. This iconoclastic gesture allows Ai to re-signify the cultural value of those artifacts, to highlight their role as silent testimonies of ages of political control. And characteristic of his oeuvre are also the installations with bicycles, made dysfunctional by removing their chains and attached one another in abstract configurations, reminiscent now of gates, now of cages, monuments to the multitude. Let's now look into Ai's media identity and his ability to use art to develop counter-discourses. Like pivotal artists of the 20th century, including Salvador Dali, Andy Warhol, Onkawara, or Joseph Beuys, Ai has made an artwork out of his own persona, using his face and body as a medium, through photographs, magazine features, music projects, social media accounts, and websites. In the beginning, it was just photography. While he was living in New York, he shot thousands of black and white pictures of improvised artworks, including self-portraits in which he performed unscripted actions, such as playing blackjack in a casino in Atlantic City, or framing his head with a bicycle tire. He's also known for taking photos of his middle finger raised to national monuments, cultural symbols, tourist destinations, and museums hosting his shows. He has raised his finger to Tiananmen Square, the White House, and since he has arrived in Bologna, he's done the same with the Torre degli Asinelli and the Palazzo d'Accursio, all posted on a dedicated website. The simple yet confrontational fuck-off gesture incarnates a punk attitude, but also reminds of conceptual forms of institutional critique, those of artists who work within the art system, but try to push its boundaries and demystify it from within. I started getting media attention in the early 2000s as a visual artist and an architect, notably for the project of his own studio building and the collaboration with architects Herzog and de Meuron on the Olympic Stadium in Beijing, the so-called bird's nest. He then took advantage of this visibility to deliver political messages. In 2005, he started a blog which allowed him to reach out to a wide audience, denouncing the despotism and misconduct of Chinese government, authorities, and police. As soon as this blog was shut down in 2009, he started using Twitter and then other social networks. In 2011, as you might already know, he was arrested for tax fraud and other charges. But the real reason was that his art, his messages, and his investigative methodology were not welcome at all. In particular, it was his attempt to expose the substandard conditions of a school where several students died in the 2008 earthquake in Sichuan that brought to a detention of 81 days. The more he was persecuted, the more media exposure he got, though. Meanwhile, the global art community started a movement of solidarity that involved the museum directors, curators, critics, art historians, and of course, other artists. His 81-day detention became also the topic of some narrative works. For example, the work Sacred, which is a fiberglass diorama with hyperrealist figurines of the artist being interrogated and surveilled by guards. The same story is at the base of a self-produced heavy metal music album titled The Divine Comedy. The music video of one of the songs, titled Dumb Ass, reconstructs his detention, with Ai impersonating himself. The album cover is a selfie, originally posted on Twitter, that he took in an elevator when he was taken into custody. Not to mention the monographic documentaries, which emphasize the role of the artist as a human rights activist and the heroic figure of the persecuted. So in parallel with proper installations of objects, like we mentioned before, this new corpus, explicitly autobiographic, entered and is now legitimate part of the artist's official output. Even his most recent project, I versus AI, which tackles artificial intelligence, is based on the artist's own personal confrontation with technology, as a reminder that an artwork can hardly be separated from the person who made it, but also that art is less a material than a cultural and social fact at large. And that helps us to understand that no matter how advanced we become, some things will remain the same and they will always look the same. Thank you. And now I will leave the floor to Arturo Galanzino and Ai Weiwei, please.
Grazie. Grazie mille. Buongiorno. Let's start with a big round of applause for Ai Weiwei. Also, on behalf of the artists, I would like to thank you for this introduction. And yes, actually, we can see you had a long career and a long life, many things to say. This is the plan. We're going to be short, hopefully 30 minutes, 40 minutes. And then we would like you to ask something to Ai Weiwei, because what Ai Weiwei wants is to speak with you students. This is very important for us, especially for him. So take this speech just as an introduction for your question. We really want you to ask something to Ai Weiwei. So let's start. You see, a lot of love, a lot of affection for you. Everybody's so happy to have you in Bologna. First time for Ai Weiwei in Bologna, we were walking around, was amazed by the beautiful architecture. The bicycles in the street, you know, he reminds him China actually, right, Ai Weiwei? And Italy is such an important country for him. As you know, he had, you know, some participation at the Biennial of Venice, was just reminded now. He had this big exhibition in Florence, in Palazzo Strozzi. You know, Ai Weiwei always have a special touch in Italy, right? What can you tell us about your relationship with our country? We just said that at the press conference. Can you repeat something about that?
Hello. It's clear, okay. Somehow, Italy is a country I feel less foreign. And, you know, this culture connections, you know, Italians very much like China. They're very family-oriented society. They know how to prepare food, and they are more relaxing, you know, rather than very industrial. So I do feel very friendly here.
Great, and we are happy that you are here with us. I tell you again. Listen, we are in a special place. This is the oldest university in the Western world. You know, it has is almost 1,000 years old, and about 90,000 students. So it's a really important university. Talking about school, you changed many schools in your life. You start in New York at the Parsons, but you left. You were not satisfied. You studied cinema in China. You were not satisfied that you left. You were not a good student. Huh? You said that many times. But I know you are a great professor and you like to teach. You like this relationship with young people, with students. Can you share with us your relationship with schooling and teaching, and what does it mean to you, education for youngsters?
Well, I maybe something you don't like to hear about. I'm a little bit allergic to campus. Yes, the idea, of course, we all understand we need a very essential education. This is so admirable. Almost 1,000 years ago, you established the first university. I think for China, the university only exists less than 200 years. So that shows how society prepared for knowledge and for information. And yeah, of course, there's different ways of teaching. And China without universities, but still they have great scholars. There's other means to educate. I cannot compare which one is better, but certainly university can educate a massive amount of people here, a few 100,000 people. This is truly impressive and respectful. I have been teaching also in different universities in China. I got a 中国美院, you know, teach architecture. I used to teach architecture, but also I teach in Germany, in Berlin, got a UDK, you know, Berlin Art University. I realize I cannot teach because I'm I more act as a father rather than a really professor. I really trying to give a pressure to students. And I realized today the student doesn't like so much pressures. And my experience in Germany is if I ask them to do something and 1 month later, they still haven't done it. They just drink coffee or, check online. And so I realize I cannot teach students who doesn't really desperately want to learn. The effort doesn't really have any result. So that's why after 3 years, I quitted.
Okay, so don't waste time with social media. Okay, well, as we just heard, everybody knows in this room you are a political persecuted figure. And in 2015, after suffering many injustice, violence from the Chinese regime, you had to leave China and you moved to Europe, as you said, first to Germany, then to England, and now you live in Portugal. So you are yourself a migrant and a refugee. And your art has been focusing heavily on this theme in the last decade. It's often said that Europe is in crisis, partly due to the issues of migrants, which has become a major political battleground and a subject of propaganda today. Do you still believe Europe is a democratic and welcoming place? And what do you think on how this crisis, this humanitarian crisis of migration, has been handled and the rhetoric around it?
Well, migration is a very complicated issue. And we all know there's no simple solution and there's no simple conclusion. But doesn't matter how fast we develop or how comfortable we develop, we still have to have a belief. That belief, I think, is humanity. So we need compassion. We need to help someone. Need to help to be helped. So, but this, of course, takes a government level and politicians to understand. To solve this problem, we need to really not just to dealing with refugees or migrants, but rather to make a world a tolerant place for everybody to live in. Simply push out is not the answer, because they have a much stronger reason to move out from their place because of the war, because of the famine, because of all kind of injustice. So I think for artists, I just have to bring up this kind of consciousness. I grew up as a refugee in my own nation. My father was exiled, and we become the enemy of the state within our nation. So I do understand what's alike being someone being seen as a foreign or as someone different. Yeah, so that's my answer.
Great. Still talking about migration, I think one of the most interesting part of our exhibition in Palazzo Fava is this dialogue that you had with the Italian old master tradition, not only Italian. And actually your works are displayed underneath the beautiful frescoes by Carracci and their school, fresco depicting histories of wars, destruction, exiles. So it's like nothing changed since the mythological times, right? But you can see also many paintings, old master paintings, remade with Lego, with these toy bricks. This is a big part of of our exhibition in Palazzo Fava. Some of them devoted to the Bolognese tradition. For instance, we have the Santa Cecilia by Raphael, we have Atlanta Ipomene by Guido Reni, we also have a still life of Morandi. Every time it changed with some different symbols. For instance, Santa Cecilia has a watermelon, right? And the Giorgione Venus has a coat hanger. Can you tell us your way of changing and playing with Old Master imagery and why you use these symbols and what do they mean, if you want to tell us?
Well, it's very difficult to analyze the artwork, especially my own work. So that's why I made the work for you to see and you're the one to make the judgment. My interest in working with culture or political situation, I take them as a ready-made. And I would say even those masterworks or perfect culture products in different time, they can have a very different interpretation. And also a lot of time is irony or humor. So I think for me it is always asking questions and in questioning existing authority, can be cultural authority or political authority. So that's the intention.
The title of the show is Who Am I? So it's a kind of existential question, a Shakespearean question. Nobody can answer this question. And Ai Weiwei doesn't even try to answer this question himself. But the show actually is presenting your very various activity, okay? Because you have been many things. Of course, a conceptual artist, a writer, a director of opera, also theater and movies. And let's say about cinema. We mentioned your, when you were a student of cinema in Beijing. Bologna has a very important institution called the Cineteca. And for instance, one of your favorite director, Pierpaolo Pasolini, studied here in this university. Can you tell us about your work as a filmmaker, your relationship with movie, with cinema? I'm sure there is a lot of students of cinema they would like to know how you use this medium.
Well, Pasolini was here. Okay. That is gave me another weight to this city because Pasolini is the director I most respect, and I think it's more than a director. He's a really cultural figure. So I'm interested in films in two aspects. One is film is more close to reality. It has narratives and tells a story, but at the same time, films is not the absolute truth. It's always being selected by or directed or edited by the directors. So I think it's interesting they have this parallel condition. And today, of course, the image production has been completely changed. We seems we no longer would be involved in this kind of long narrative or storytelling because social media and because other imagery presentation can be very short and very direct.
Yes, and you were in your career one of the first artists to use social media as a tool of expression, as a way of making art. So we mentioned the cinema, we mentioned artificial intelligence, social media, of course, big installation, you all know, but the Lego we just mentioned. But actually, in the exhibition, we can see incredibly refined artisanal objects, such as beautiful porcelains, beautiful furniture, glasses. You know, it's incredible. And we were watching the works together yesterday, and still today, you are impressed about the refinement, the quality that you can achieve using, of course, Chinese old artisan, etc. So this is very unusual for a contemporary and conceptual artist to use this kind of exquisite materials and techniques. Can you explain us why you choose this kind of very old traditional technique? And to explain us, is it a way to preserve these artisanal techniques? Why you wanted to work with Chinese tradition?
Well, I'm a so-called contemporary artist. That means my theme or my concept is very much from the modern time. But gradually, the time I went back to China, 1993, from New York City, after being 12 years in New York City, I realized I cannot do much in New York City. So I went back to China. And also I realized I cannot do much in China because China still has a strong ideology control and censorship. So I spent about 6 years in antique market. Every day I go to antique market. That was a booming of so-called the golden age of Chinese antiques, because everywhere is construction, and they found a lot of stuff farmer would bring to the we call it ghost market. That means before the day the sun rises up, we have to use how do you call the hand lighting to find those objects, which can be very surprising. Objects should be museum quality, but with very low price. So I was drawn to it because when I grew up in Cultural Revolution, there's no such thing as old objects ever exist. If they see something old, they will destroy it. So it gave me opportunity to really see Chinese history through daily activities by looking into antique market. This huge amount is unbelievable. You can find anything, porcelain, jade, even early fabric, silk, or furnitures, and anything. So that for me is like an intensive study of what happened in the past. I'm interested in antiquity not because it's a value, but rather because I'm trying to imagine how people make this and why they have to make this, why those things disappeared. So that benefits me a lot later when I become an artist again, because I quitted art basically for 10, 20 years. Then I become artist again. And so by then I have a strong knowledge and respect about craftsmanship. China has unbelievable, superb craftsmanship in relation to porcelains and furniture making, and almost every object they touched have a strong aesthetic and a moral judgment. So there's no single objects are free from those things. And that's how I start to use those craftsmen to produce my work. And those craftsmen almost disappeared because in modern construction you don't need the classic skills. You can never make money if you do a furniture for 2 years. This is impossible. They would build a high-rise building, one level in every 2-3 days. So, but I still challenges those craftsmen to make traditional work for my own joy, and also it's I feel very happy if I made something people will not even understand, the value, the kind of quality. And still, most of my product work, still nobody understand. So that gave me a very private joy.
Yeah, so you studied the techniques, these old techniques when you came back in China in '93 to assist your father who was sick, yes. And you gathered many of these objects. In the exhibition we can see hundreds of Neolithic axes, for instance. So very old objects. But do you consider yourself a collector?
I'm not a collector of objects. I'm a collector of human mind or thinking. I'd rather think that way.
So thanks to your work, you preserved and you saved many objects and also techniques that are disappearing, as you just said. But as we can see now in the images, you also destroyed the past. This very iconic.
I don't think I destroyed it. I made a new life for that.
Exactly.
It's never. If it's destroyed, it will not appear on this image.
So, do you believe there is a strong relationship between creation and destruction?
I think in the art history, in China, I don't know in here, but they have a strong Buddhism tradition. So there will be a generation or dynasties make highly artistic sculptures, but the next generation would completely destroy it. And then they will have something new made, and could be porcelain, or the next generation, still that tradition can get lost and something else. So it's different judgment and different kind of preference. Yeah, and very often when we see something is so highly have a value, but we still have to asking why. For what reason the value exists, and if that value can be destroyed also.
Very true. So let's move from the old artisan craftsmanship to the new technologies. It was mentioned just before, and this is also the reason why we called the exhibition with this title, because you recently tried to challenge the artificial intelligence, right? Which is a tool that nowadays almost everybody is already using, and we all know that this is going to grow and grow, and it's going to change, we don't know if in a good or a bad way, our life forever. We're talking about like a new industrial revolution in a way with artificial intelligence. Why did you choose to challenge the artificial intelligence? And can you also tell us something about your relationship with technology, and if artificial intelligence and technology can play a role in the creative process?
Well, the way I use technology is really about information and also communication. I don't use that for maybe I do some design works like Lego designs or wallpaper presented this. They use very little technology, not much there. And I think creative act, you can do with anything. It's not necessarily you have to have a high tech. And in every level, a children or a grandma, they also can make something which highly aesthetically charged. So, I'm sorry, why this image? Oh my God, this is during.
That's natural.
This is during my detention, 81 days. My mom always asked me, under so many friends, they said, "What's it like? How what's it like?" So I thought, that's easy. I'm an artist. I just make the sculptures to show you how it was like. It's easier. When you see it, you get more information than I write about it. But also I did write about it. But yeah, that's my room. And with 2 soldiers, 24 hours be with me, very intimate, very close. And we have to do a walk 5 hours a day in this very little room, actually 6 tails back and forth. And yeah, it's that's the condition.
Still about new technology, we mentioned the social media and the freedom of expression. Thanks to social media, you had the freedom to express yourself in a very difficult political situation. And what's happening in these images is clear. You were arrested because you expressed your opinions. And yeah, I would like to ask you, how did you react recently when the founder of Telegram was arrested in France? Which is the boundary between the freedom of expression and the use of social media?
When we talk about the freedom, actually in different society have a very, very different definition. So when you live in a dark room, when there's a gap or a hole, then you appreciate that ray of light comes in because that's so precious. But when you're living under a glass room, you couldn't even find a shadow. So the light doesn't mean anything. Also, you may not even appreciate. You want to find a shadow. So it means very differently. But I do think I cannot really judge when someone being arrested, because very often it's not about surface value. Nobody knows what's really behind. When I was accused by authorities, they would never tell people I was accused as a subversive of a state power. Even all the interrogation is about how I would subvert the state power. But when I was released, they said I have an economic crime. So I asked them, I said, if you know me, all those people born in 90s or 80s or 90s, young people, they know who I am. And you think if you tell them I was arrested for economic crime, do you think they would believe you? The interrogator looked at me and hesitated and think over, said, Weiwei, 90% of the people would believe us. So those politicians, they act the way they don't care. They're telling a lie. They know that lie would work. So same as when you have the case when those people being arrested, but you never know the accusation is a real, what's it really behind it, you know.
Yes, of course. And let's have the last question, then we leave the stage to the students. As we have just said, your art is very political, and you became famous for this activism, which is...
I think that's wrong, because people, you know, my art is not very political, but my art is so strong in terms of art, of art making or materials or understanding of the form, the shapes, and the mechanism. But most people, they cannot challenge it. They said, oh, that guy is just political, you know, which I think it can be much more political, you know.
I totally agree.
Yes.
You answered my question. So now I would like you to ask a question to Ai Weiwei. Please. Who's ready to... Oh, nobody dares. Okay, somebody, please.
Hello. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to Ai Weiwei. You're an artist that I've followed for many years, so I'm very honored to ask a question. And we talked about values and the human mind, and you said something about collecting what it is, ideas, you know, maybe the ideas that are the true value. And in this day and age, being a contemporary civilian, it's really hard to understand what is the value of a human. And I wanted to ask you, through your experience, through your life, and through your creations, in a society, both Western and Eastern, which is very based on economic value, how do we refine our human value and that true, pure nature? Do we find it in art? Do we find it in creation? Is it in us, or have we lost it?
I think it's a very profound question. Thank you for asking that. I think when we talk about values in today, contemporary, we call it modern age or postmodern age, is very, very difficult question to even to answer. It's like you're under a heavy storm. Everything gets wet. You know, even you know, the air everywhere is wet. So under today's, basically we're living in a society which with not only necessary struggles, but also make best profit. You know, to the education, under the social media, everything is to tell you, you have to be successful. You have to, you know, to make best out of it. But still, I think there's much less education on philosophy or real values of a human life. But the competition is very clear. If you don't win the competition, you're a loser. So in that sense, how much you still can protect this essential meaning of life, so that everyone should find out their own judgment. You know, we're not living in absolute condition. We all have relatives, parents, or and we have a responsibility. We have to fulfill the basic responsibility. So I cannot give any clear answer on that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Round of applause. Okay, we have another question.
Thank you very much for your beautiful presentation and lecture. Let's say I also can just add that for me it's such a big honor to ask you a question. I'm as well from the country that right now in a very peculiar, strange situation. I'm from Russia, so we have also a lot of problems with political stuff. But I would like to ask you a question. Maybe it's a very simple question, but I think it's kind of interesting, at least for me. You have a very huge portfolio, a lot of museums, a lot of exhibitions, but if you have the opportunity to choose only one work, your work, that maybe would describe you and maybe will answer to the question, that's who am I, which one it will be the artwork of you?
Among
If
my
you have
own
to
work?
choose one of your works.
I always would answer maybe next one. But you know, if I'm satisfied with my work, I will never make another one. So I'm the only artist. I have the largest studio in Berlin or in Portugal. But if you walk into my studio, the only artist studio probably in the world, you don't see a piece of art on the wall. It's empty. The emptiness shows my psychology or my condition. I'm not satisfied with my work, and you know, some works takes a lot of effort. It's remarkable, and also a lot of collective effort. But it's past. It's already happened. So I'm always looking for something not happened yet. So that is kind of maybe some kind of sickness, you know. So I don't. That would wake me up in the middle of the night, or I would be over alert about a certain situation. But maybe it shouldn't be that way. Maybe being an artist is not a very good human condition.
Please.
I just want to ask, well, I really appreciate that you're really brave, you're really courage. And for example, because I really appreciate your work, Human Flow, in which you show not just the sorrow, but the hope of the people, the hope that you have. So, and I appreciate of your work that you show not just the critical part, what the bad things are in the world, but also in the history, that history can be a history of choice. Do you agree? The question is, what do you think about the human possibilities through your heart, through your thought, that are, for example, in your challenge against artificial intelligence, because, as you said, artificial intelligence is not alive, but we are alive. So, what do you think about this challenge? This can be a really possibility for human beings to struggle against this thing that is obliging, that is putting us in a condition to really be being substituted by robots or something like that.
So the question is, do you believe in the power of choice of human being today in our challenging...
And the possibilities and the faculties of human beings.
If we can have a choice in life to determine our future, our destiny. If we have a choice today to give a direction to our life in this world dominated by technology and etc.
Well, as a human being, we were born with no restraints. Actually, life is a miracle. So that's the only thing we have to admit. If we see how, no matter how rich or how poor you are, and the value of life still come from your own determination and how you think your life is. So under that kind of assumption, of course we always can make a choice. A choice is essential. And also we also should refuse the choice by machine or by technology or by someone who seemingly are more intelligent or powerful would direct us into some kind of meaning. So the meaning only has to created by every individual.
We have a question there. There? Okay, and then you. Okay. Please.
Right. So I think I would like to ask a question in regards to the topic of home, because I think for many people a home is something where usually they're a place of origin, where they can regain or reload their batteries, where they feel safe. But right now we have a situation where people consider it a migration crisis and where people are being prosecuted, being followed, and also you have a history of being politically threatened and prosecuted. And you've yourself migrated quite a lot, now live in Portugal at the moment. So what would you consider home? Like it could be like a place, it could be a situation, it could be a relationship. That would be something I would be really interested in, especially given your background and experience, what you would call home, especially now that you've also left your place of origin, what many people call home.
Well, to call something home or call somewhere home, it requires a lot. It requires the air, the wind, the raining, and the road. It requires a corner or a tree you're so familiar with, you're growing up with. But I don't have any of them. It doesn't matter where I stay. I'm living pretty comfortable today, but still, I cannot erase the feeling of being a foreigner or someone doesn't belong to it. I always like living in a hotel. When I wake up, there's a second I would trying to find out where is the light switch. And if I go to bathroom or shower, I have to take a second to hesitate how to turn on the water, because this is a sense of insecurity always there. And that's my life. I will never have a home. It's not possible. Something if you don't have when you're as a child, you miss it for your life. So we really have to take care of those babies and make them, to believe in something, have some trust. I don't have this trust. I don't even have a trust in humanity. If you see what happens in different parts of the world, how can you trust humanity? If you see our politicians never listen to the people, never. Doesn't matter, you call it democratic or freedom of speech. There's no single politicians listen to the people. They just born as that different kind of animal. And of course, they pretend they listen to the people, but that's not true. If they listen to the people, why are those wars still going on? It's impossible, right? People demonstrate, people have a voice to say, stop it, do not killing, do not send young people to the war zone. But the war goes on, and it may go on much worse situation, much,
Maybe sometimes they listen to the wrong people, let's say that. Okay, domanda? Okay, so.
Yeah, thank you so much for this inspiring conversation. And I have a question relating to your last project, because the way we can interact with AI systems such as ChatGPT is programmed to simulate human interaction. We can ask questions to AI, referring it as a you, a supposed you. And I think that this way of anthropomorphizing technology, and AI in particular, is misleading when it comes to truly understanding it, and particularly the infrastructure behind it. So I wanted to know your opinion about that. Should we avoid anthropomorphize technology and find a new language to approach this tool object? Thank you.
Yes, so the question is about what do you think about this trend that technologies has to make technologies similar to human, anthropomorphize them. So like artificial intelligence is like speaking with somebody, with a person. Do you think that new technology should find new ways, or so what do you think about this emulating the human way of communicating through technology? That's what you asked, right?
I think simply technology is a tool. You know, it's a tool which is employed by the master, you know, to achieve certain task. But of course, no tools can completely replace a human, and you know, we don't want. Even we trying to create a robot, but we would never think we like to sleep with a robot, or maybe someone likes, but I don't think I would. And you know, so the difference is, as a human being, we developed the sensitivity or knowledge with millions years or 100,000 years, and those are really made who we are, and we can never really make a machine which be incomparable to that kind of degree. It's not possible. So in that sense, to exaggerating the ability of AI or some robots, I think for me is ridiculous, because we even have a difficult time to understand my children, or my father, or my partner. Even we know each other maybe for years, but still someone else tells you, it's your father, you immediately know that's not your father, or it's just impossible. And that doesn't matter how much looks like your father, but it's just not. That sensitivity, I don't think the machine can ever really become like that. It's not possible. So again, we are created by God. I think only in that sense I believe in God. I think we all made so unique, and it's impossible to find a parallel case.
Hi there. Thank you very much. When you think about the future of China and its place in the world, where do you see it going? What are your predictions for the future? And what impact do you think that you have as a protester and as an activist, and many others, such as Jimmy Lai in Hong Kong, what real impact do you think you will have on the future of China and its place in the world?
Very clear question. And you ask the right person, actually. There's a different level to answer that question. First, about a nation like China, which have 1.4 billion people, and its own safety and well-being and development. And the second is China now is meet the competition with the other nations like the European nations or United States. So this is a very different level. And also, when we talk about a nation, there's individuals like me or Jimmy Lai and also millions of Hong Kong people. They try to defend their rights. And those rights is, they're entitled to have those rights. But if from the state point of view, they think their rights should be limited. That's why they put me in detention. They put Jimmy Lai still sentenced or still pending to be sentenced. So I cannot give a absolute answer. I think every individual should act on their own belief. I act on my belief. I know my fighting can never win. It's not possible. And but still, for a moment, I thought it could be a good idea if that happens. But I realize it's not possible. And if you talk about China's development, I think China in past 30 years, 40 years, developed quite impressively. They are still trying to manage to create a new world order. Unfortunately, that kind of strategic thinking is somehow only Russian and several other states share that kind of vision. And but do they have a reason to do so? I do think they have the reason. They have a perfect reason, just like an individual, they can make their argument. But do they have a chance to win? That is very hard to say. If you look at what happens in the United States or in Europe, the political situation changes also can be dramatically, also can be very unpredictable. If you play chess, you can win by your superb skill. Also, you can win by your opponent's mistakes, right? So it's really very hard to say.
Bene. Okay, maybe last question, okay? Great.
Thanks for the inspiring lecture. I'm very happy and honored to ask the question. Since we are surrounded by so many news and fake news, how should the contemporary artists measure their compassion? Because I saw in your works you have a big compassion for the refugees and for the, the students in Sichuan Wenchuan ones. So my question is how the contemporary artists, they can measure their compassion during they are using the social media, because that we can't have unlimited love and general love for all the fears around the world. Thanks.
What's the question?
So the question is how contemporary artists can use their own compassion.
And how they measure it.
How do you measure the compassion of an artist today?
Well, artist is just a title. Everybody can call himself an artist or herself artist. So how an individual measures its compassion? Well, you have to act. You cannot just, one is what you believe, and what then your ability to act on your beliefs, which is always a little different. So my way to measure it is I have to make it happen. I have to challenge myself to say if I can make it.
Thank you. Thank you, Ai Weiwei. Thanks to you all, and thanks to the professor of the University of Bologna. I think to organize something like that for the students is something very important for everybody, for us, and I hope also for the students themselves. Grazie mille, vi aspettiamo a Palazzo Fava alla mostra di Ai Weiwei.
Thank you.